And I think I need to put something in the email blasts that this is an AI-free Zoom meeting. Don't send your otter or anything else here to this meeting. If you want to watch this meeting or observe this meeting, you need to come to the meeting yourself. Because so far it's only been one person that has sent their bot, but yeah, some of the other organizations I know have had that come up.
I wouldn't even know what you're talking about. I mean, you mean the bot
It has to join the
behaves
meeting.
or just videos the meeting?
I'm not entirely sure what the bots do. They I believe that they might video record, they might spit out an assessment of what all was said. I mean, that's what AI tends to do, is to, give you a rundown. This is what this article says in 3 sentences.
Mm.
All right. So I don't know what it would do. I don't care. This is a space without it. So,
right.
But we are getting a lot of our people. Maybe give us another 5 minutes. Chief, I appreciate you coming. If you can hold on for 5 minutes, we should get more people.
Yeah, sometimes there'll be somebody on in a meeting and they have otter on, and then it sends for some reason a transcript or synopsis to everybody whose email was part of that meeting. I don't know if they have to intentionally send it, but I get them often, and I'm always surprised because I don't use it, but
yeah, so there you go. I think you just described what it does. It does an assessment of the meeting, and then it's there to spit out and send out to people if you want. And I can see the value in that if this was, an important business meeting, but that's not what it is. So, and I do occasionally get a wild hair up my butt, and I do load them up on our YouTube channel. It's been a while since I put any up, but I probably
nice.
should.
That's nice. Yeah.
All right.
Well, hi, Chief. This is Stacy. Thanks so
much. Stacy, I think you just drove under an overpass or something, because you said it's so nice.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I probably did. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you. I know that you've been really busy lately, Chief. So thank you for being with us today.
Well, and with that, why don't we go ahead and start? This is a pretty good number we got here. So it's 6:33 p.m. And for once, we'll actually officially start the meeting from Santa Monica Mid-City Neighbors. And Chief, we asked you to come on just to kind of give us a rundown of this past weekend's activities, how you were prepared for this one, and how people behaved.
Yeah. So thank you, Mid-City Neighbors, for the invitation. It's also on my calendar to attend, I think it's Make Music Day on Saturday. So I plan on seeing you guys on Saturday as well. But today, a quick recap on our deployment on Saturday. So we started planning for this all the way back to probably the previous weekend, when we could tell that the event was gaining steam. We were watching the number of reservations, RSVPs, to attend. And as the week progressed, we noticed that the amount of interest in the event was really growing. One day, from one day to the next, I think the numbers had doubled in one case. And so we started planning way out in advance with respect to how many people we're going to need to have on board, the mitigation plans to address issues of a peaceful protest, but then on the backside, you could have the people that are opportunists looking for the availability, the opportunity to be distracted by a large event to then come and wreak havoc on any one of our business areas, business corridors, where it was Montana, or it was in downtown, or Main Street, and of course the pier and the pier businesses. Ocean Avenue was of concern. I think all of us recognize, right, that our city's recovery is in a fragile state. And so for me, the importance of making sure that we were very, very prepared for any kind of event that could come from this was really important. So we had offers from the California Department of Corrections, Santa Barbara County, and Gardena PD to offer additional resources to help us. And given the number of areas we needed to cover and the way that we wanted to cover it, I welcome those resources. I wanted to make sure that we had the ability to close off the freeways if we needed to, and any other areas that we've identified as the entry points or the exit points for Santa Monica. Because again, we learned a lot from the things that happened way back in 2020. Now remember, since 2020, we've handled probably over 100 protests of different kinds. Some of them have been highly charged in downtown, with a group for something and a group against something going right at one another. And in those instances, we've been able to allow for free speech to continue, but yet we've kept the groups apart and made sure that the outcome was safe, and nobody ever heard about it. But we have had a lot of protests that have happened in Santa Monica since 2020, and they've all been successful. And I just wanted to make sure that I point that out, because I think that we forget, right? We only have a memory of something that happened that was really bad, but in between then and now, we've handled a lot of other protests. Also, in January, we had the fires, and for 2 weeks, we were on this tactical alert for 1 square mile area north of Montana, and that's 1 solid square mile, just over a square mile. And in that time frame, we were able to keep it relatively safe. And again, that wasn't people that we were dealing with that were Santa Monica residents. They were all folks from other parts of LA, LA City, LA County, that poured into the area because they were aware that folks had been evacuated. And indeed, some of the people that we contacted had that very instructive watch app on their phone that gave them like a map that literally told them what areas have been evacuated, what areas were under curfew. So that again told us that these people were opportunists. They were looking for the empty residences, empty homes to burglarize. And so we're very proactive in that. Made a lot of traffic stops and made a lot of arrests. None of them were Santa Monica residents. So, and the things that we stopped them for were, everything from driving DUI to carrying weapons to carrying stolen goods from burglaries that they had committed in the area, burglary tools, God, you name it. Anyway, but all of that led to the preparation for Saturday. We had the ability to use the drone as a first responder. We have new cameras in the area. Of course, the license plate readers that we installed were really helpful. The officers on the ground, I wanted them to have a very low footprint within the area of the rally, but honestly, like all the way around it, the officers were stationed very strategically around, so that in case something happened, we'd be able to respond pretty quickly into the area. And I think you guys remember that, if you attended the rally, you may remember that at one point, there was a car that came through that had Trump flags on it, and a lot of conflict started to erupt around that car. And then the officers were like immediately into the area, escorting the car out of the Ocean Avenue in order to get him out of the area, because the conflict with that car and the flags was really beginning to escalate. And so that was just like a hint of like how quickly we were able to jump into something and address it in order to de-escalate the situation. There were other things that happened, I think, that never really probably got on anybody's radar, but we did see it. there was a guy that was walking around with a backpack full of broken up concrete pieces. He Nothing ever really came of it. He came into the area. We watched him kind of mess around with the backpack. Obviously, it was heavy, and so that's kind of what led us to trying to figure out what he had in it. And he was trying to rearrange the rocks in order to balance the weight. There was another couple of folks that arrived with a really big box of gas masks, and they were the type of gas masks that are more like disposable, like they come in a bag, probably like a one-time use kind of thing. And again, um, that in and of itself, like not problematic, but then we're also looking for folks that might show up with the intent to like rile the crowd up. And then, they've got their gas masks all at the ready in case something happens. So this is something else. There were a couple of vehicles that, we were concerned about. They were kind of like going through the area, cruising it slowly. And again, not looking at it from the lens of just maybe somebody that comes to rile up the crowd or antagonize the rally, but somebody that could actually be there with the intent to harm people that are attending the rally, right? So you could have somebody with like an extreme ideology that looks at that area as like a potential fertile ground for a lot of victims, right? So I had to look at things through that lens, and that was part of the reason why, if you attended, you saw a large amount of water barricades set up to protect people that were the majority of the people that were on the park side. So, I mean, I can answer your questions as well as I can, but I guess I just wanted to give you like a broad overview of what that all looked like. We had about 200 officers, I think, in total that were working, and I felt confident in the amount of coverage that we had, both to protect the event at the rally site, but then also to keep an eye on the business corridors that I talked about, Montana, downtown, Ocean Avenue, and such. So, yeah, I mean, it was a very, very long day. After we wrapped up the rally, a lot of us, myself included, went over to Virginia Avenue Park and were a part of the festivities for Juneteenth. So, all in all, a very successful day, but a really long day. And honestly, for a lot of us, the following day, which was Sunday, was a big day of rest. And we were very grateful for Father's Day, to be honest with you, because the previous week was pretty intense. Throughout the week, I was handling a ton of inquiries from residents and business owners with a lot of concerns related to the rally and what could come of it if bad actors showed up. So there was a lot to contend with throughout the week, but in the end, I think everything was successful, and I felt pretty good about it. And I hope that sets like a new line of demarcation, a new feeling about how we respond to a protest, so that our residents writ large feel good and comfortable about our ability to handle a big event.
Yeah, I did go down, and kind of what my observation is, if you were kind of close to the speakers so you could hear them, you couldn't see anything behind you really because it's just a crowd, but you could hear a lot of activity back over by Ocean Avenue and a lot of chanting and loud noises, and it was hard to tell if are those people that are with us or is that a conflict or what, but nothing really ever came of it, so must have been okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting, and I did come down early to have a look at the signage to see what I would be allowed to bring or not, because I have a full-size flag and I've attached it to a broomstick, and I'm like, well, is that going to be legal or not? So I was pleased to see that as long as it didn't have a point on it, it was okay.
Yeah.
But I did notice like the very last line was no gas masks. So
So
Um,
I want to, if I could pause there, I want to touch on a couple things. The rally was overwhelmingly positive. So the cheering and everything you heard was in support of the cause. The only negative that we had was that car that drove by with the Trump flags,
Yeah.
and he was quickly escorted out. But everything else that you heard was overwhelmingly positive. And I was watching things. I drove through the area, and I was monitoring the same things. So I wanted to mention that we put a lot of effort into the signage. I don't know if you guys noticed, but also all the digital kiosks had a specific message about, keeping it peaceful, and it was a very positive message. But what we had staged into the system was a different set of guidelines and orders depending on what was unfolding. So if things started to go south, then the messages were going to change accordingly to whatever the situation was that we had unfolding. And of course, you mentioned the signs that were up that talked about the prohibited items. All of that was important, right, to give notice as to what's okay and what's not okay. And very quickly, I want to give credit to our partners within the city that were with us that day. The Office of Emergency Management opened up the Emergency Operations Center. So it's a hub where we were able to all gather. So there was the Office of Emergency Management, the dispatching was there, code enforcement was there, a Big Blue Bus, the Department of Transportation was there, Public Works, because they were helping us. And the city communications team was with us as well. And I know I'm forgetting one other team. The fire department was there as well. So, and the police department, of course. So, but that and the city manager's office, that's it. Our interim city manager was in the EOC monitoring everything. And of course, that's my boss. And I was in close coordination with her, letting her know kind of step by step as the day was evolving as to what we were doing. And throughout the day, as the event began to unwind and everything was peaceful, we did monitor one large group that marched over towards Ocean in Colorado. They broke apart, and one part stayed there. The other part went to City Hall. And then they eventually all came back, and over time, they dissipated. But as all that was happening, we began to demobilize. In other words, we began to send people home depending on what area of responsibility they had. That was also the second night of the entertainment zone in downtown. So we had to make sure that we had enough officers to ensure safety and coverage for downtown. Uh, in all honesty, the entertainment zone was a success that night on Friday and Saturday night. Nothing happened. I think we had like maybe one person who tried to walk past the barricade where you couldn't walk with an open container of alcohol. But yeah, so that's kind of how things progressed as the event unfolded. But a really good point of what you brought up, and I'm glad you reminded me of it.
okay. I will open the floor to questions, and there you go, Steve. Hot off the draw there.
Hello, thank you, Chief, for being here and answering the questions we have and giving us an overview of everything. How many people attended the rally that was there?
Yeah, so the estimates really ranged from 2,500 all the way to 3,000. Some even said 3,500. It's hard to judge. I saw the different pictures and angles of the amount of people that were out there. It certainly looked to be in the range of about 2,000, 2,500. So that was our rough estimate, 2,500.
And did you notice any television stations out there and so forth, or they pretty much didn't cover the event?
I did not see a news station out there.
That's actually good, because a lot of times people don't act normally when they might be on camera.
This was a really good crowd. I'm telling you, this was a really good crowd. The amount of support that we received from the people attending the event was overwhelmingly positive. So I think it was a really good group of people, by and large.
And earlier you mentioned that you've had over 100 different protests and so forth. Are these protests where people have to take out permits for them, or they're just fly-by-night type of deals?
They're both. They're both. So, you know, a permit just allows us the opportunity to engage with somebody and try to understand like the dynamics of what they're trying to do. If they're going to have a march of any kind, whether or not we can try to accommodate that, we try to give them guidance. But they don't necessarily have to get a permit. I mean, anybody can spontaneously get a group of people together and begin to protest any number of things. The ongoing protests to Elon Musk and Tesla have been happening pretty regularly on Saturdays in downtown, and so that's an example of one where they don't get a permit, but they do get out there and do their thing. So both things can happen at the same time. We have some that are permitted, that go through the process, and some that just we learn about it because there's a lot of engagement through social media as they're trying to get people to attend their event. And then we see it and we're like, oh, that's going to be in Santa Monica, or that's going to be on the pier, or the promenade. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I had another question that occurred to me. Was that a sheriff's helicopter that was hovering overhead?
I don't think that the sheriff's department was monitoring our event. If there was a helicopter that was up above at some point, it was probably a news helicopter. That was probably what we encountered the most.
Yeah, except the paint color on it, it was
Green and white. Was it green and white?
green. Yeah, it was green.
Yeah, I mean that is the sheriff's department's colors, but I did not get a report of them flying overhead.
Yeah, I mean I know what Air 5 looks like, and it's usually green and yellow. This was just kind of almost like a solid green, and it had a very large electronic device on the front. So, and it was, the reason I ask is because it was hovering while the council members were speaking, and it was pretty low over the crowd, and it was making it hard to hear the speech. So it was almost as if it was intentionally attempting to disrupt.
So I got to tell you that I know the sheriff. I've known the sheriff for a long time, and he is just like I am, very much free speech, pro-social, pro-democracy. His philosophy is not one of antagonism or to be antagonistic towards democracy. So I would highly doubt that a sheriff's department helicopter would be operating that way under his leadership. That's just not him. It's not.
That's why it struck me as odd.
Not his leadership style.
Yeah, and it almost looked kind of like a military style helicopter. So
yeah.
Ellen, go ahead.
Yeah, I sort of monitor next door a bit, and then I see things like, and I'm not sure if this is happening or not, but it was reported that there are very few people at Clover Park on Father's Day, whereas Mother's Day and Easter, it was packed. And there was a rumor on the next door that the ICE units were at Douglas Park. And I don't know if that was true or not, but one woman, and I don't like this idea either, was volunteering to take care of people's children because they were worried about the nannies being snatched up and then the children being left. And so I don't want strangers coming out and picking up or volunteering even to take over someone's children.
Yeah.
And have we seen anything like ICE coming around our parks? My sister saw some people over at Lincoln, and she said she didn't recognize the uniforms they were in. I mean, not Lincoln. Yeah, on Lincoln Boulevard, Reed Park.
So remember, right now everybody is hyper vigilant towards law enforcement vehicles that are unmarked, right? But before DHS showed up a week or two ago, we had unmarked law enforcement cars all throughout Santa Monica, LA County, Los Angeles, because there's a lot of different law enforcement agencies. You have probation and parole. They're in, pretty generic looking plain, cars, four-door SUVs that are not marked. You have other police departments that have unmarked cars. So I know that right now we're thinking that, you know, the feds are only operating out of these unmarked cars with dark tinted windows, and that's true that they have, but just take it into context that, you know, the federal government can only operate at the level that they're operating today in Los Angeles for a certain amount of time before, you know, the operational momentum can't be kept up. So they're not always going to be at this heightened level in Los Angeles, because remember, at the same time that Border Patrol is here, Border Patrol is not at the front at the front end of our borders with Mexico. And so we still have to deal with over there. We still have to deal with terrorism. We still have to deal with drug smuggling, and we certainly still have to deal with human smuggling. So at some point, all the Border Patrol agents that we have here will have to go back to do their regular duty. We have seen Border Patrol cars, marked Border Patrol units, trucks, I think, and some SUVs driving through Santa Monica, at least on 2 occasions. One was a photograph of 3 cars from Border Patrol near City Hall off of Main and Olympic. And another one was a reported sighting of 3 Border Patrol cars at 00 block of the Bay. So down by Bay and kind of Oceanfront Walk. With respect, but nothing happened with those interactions. Like, they were just driving by. With respect to the reports of nannies being arrested at Douglas Park, that report was never confirmed. Our officers went and checked the area after we received that information, and we found that there were plenty of nannies still working, and vendors, right? There were still vendors walking around Douglas Park. So that report was probably not accurate, but it certainly got a lot of people pretty amped up. We had another report, I think at about 16th or 17th in California, if I remember correctly. That was images of a person being arrested. You can't see the markings on the law enforcement officers, but it was a plain unmarked car. And so I think the assumption was on that one that it was you know, DHS or ICE making an arrest. I've yet to confirm whether or not anybody ever spoke to anybody at that residence to find out if indeed somebody was arrested by the Department of Homeland Security. So I don't know. But in those situations, for sure, like, it could be parole or probation, or it could be Immigration's Custom Enforcement. So yeah, I hope that's like I know it's a kind of a long answer, but it's kind of a broad question.
Yeah, and ICE is going to run out of money soon. So we'll see what happens. Mouse, go ahead.
Hi, Chief.
Hey, Mouse, how are you?
I'm good. So just to clarify about Santa Monica not being a sanctuary city, but follows the sanctuary rules, and what does it take for a city to become a sanctuary city?
So a couple things. I would say that we're probably, like the rest of the state, probably immigrant friendly, right? I think that's a pretty good way of putting it. We're definitely not antagonistic towards immigrants, and we welcome them here. We take care of immigrant folks. The term sanctuary city, I know you've probably heard this, hasn't been defined. And so I don't want to wade into that simply because, you know, we're not a sanctuary city, and so that's fine. But we're doing everything we can, obviously, to take care of immigrants in our city. So I know it doesn't quite answer your question, but, you know, I'm not going to wade into the definition of a sanctuary city especially if it's not been clearly defined.
But is that something that the city council would vote on, or do the residents? How does that, do you know how that could potentially work if that's what the city wanted?
I don't know what the mechanism for that would be. So I don't know.
I guess that's a good question to ask one of our councilmen, right?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
It would be a good question for our council members who keep having special meetings on third Tuesdays. I've been trying to get council members here for a while, and they keep having a closed session meeting on the third Tuesday of the month. So eventually we'll get there so we can ask. But I think the chief is right that it would be the city council would decide, and then direct the manager to write up whatever policies they felt it was necessary.
So I think something to remember, right? In all the tumult that we saw so many other cities go through, in the city of LA, you know, thankfully, and I guess I knock on wood, but Santa Monica has not had the same experience, and I'm grateful for that. I'm happy about that because I think that our residents writ large are under a lot of stress, and it doesn't feel good. Um, so so just something to keep into consideration, in the pursuit of something like that.
Good. Steve,
Do you have any plans to for the weekends when we have so many thousands of people down at the beach and the pier from all over, and many I think probably are immigrants? Do you have any concerns about that and the horrible traffic jams that we get at that
So
time of year?
so yeah, no, you're right about traffic during the summertime. It is very hard to get around. That is just a matter of in case of congestion. The parking garages do get used quite a bit, but obviously ingress and egress into the downtown area is very tight. Now, with respect to the summertime deployment and the amount of tourism that we get during the summer, it is the natural flow of tourism into Santa Monica, right? But it is also the amount of folks that come from other parts of LA County. Remember, I-10 is like drops you off right here into the 1550 lot and right there next to the pier. We have officers that work on the weekends specifically to work the beaches, specifically to work on the pier. We have a dedicated team of officers that does nothing but works on the pier, the Oceanfront Walk, and Palisades Park. The part that is like right kind of bounded by about Bay to about maybe California. Their job is to watch that entire area specifically, but we do have additional officers that are tasked with working that. I can't specifically say that we've had a higher number of interactions with immigrants in the community on the weekends in those areas. That's not something that like pops off the crime map where I can definitively say that that's a serious concern. I would say that it has not proven to be that, but we do have a lot of more officers working in the daytime and at night on the weekends, just specifically for that.
go ahead, Steve.
Hi. Last Friday, I went to the Lincoln Car Wash. I think it's Lincoln in Colorado, right there, and was only able to get my car washed on the outside because half their staff wasn't there for fear of ICE coming in. But with us not being a sanctuary city, isn't their role to just contact you to see if you have people in jail and so forth because they're just looking for criminals?
So, from me watching, well, you guys all know that I came from Arizona, right? And you know that there's a big presence of Border Patrol in Tucson, where I did the majority of my time, and so I'm very familiar with them working near a border, right? And the work of Border Patrol and what they do. And so it seemed to me in watching the last couple of weeks that I think in some cases they had a very good idea that there was a wanted person at a particular place that they were going to pick up. Um, and then it seems as though you can also have situations where they had an idea that there could be a large amount of immigrants at a particular place, And so they went there directly focusing on seeing who they could contact. No specific want or warrant on anybody, just the fact that they thought that there would be a lot of immigrants in these places. And so I think that that was what we saw transpire in downtown Los Angeles. That's what we saw transpire in, uh, I can't remember the name of the cities. Culver City, I think, was one where there was a car wash that was raided in that manner. So, so seeing those types of tactics of how they did things, I think that there was some component of them driving around and looking for opportunities where they thought that they might run into immigrants to then stop and engage with them. But I just don't think that that Santa Monica had that same level of engagement from them. I mean, I know that they obviously drove through the area at least a couple times we know, but thankfully, you know, nothing where they stopped and then started chasing people all over the place, which is, I think, something that unfolded at a car wash in Culver City. And in that situation, somebody that was on the ground related to me that they saw like 20 Border Patrol cars arrive and agents and people running in all different directions. And I could just imagine, what that looked like from anyone's perspective. Very disruptive.
Okay. Let's see if I thought I had another question. Yes. Did I see that this city council finally decided that there should be a curfew on the beach?
So on that question, what we've done is we've reached out to the Coastal Commission and have started the conversation with them about the possibility of restricting the amount of people that can be on the beach during a certain amount of hours, right? Probably, I think maybe 5 hours in the middle of the night, which coincides with the time when we've had some assaultive behavior in the middle of the night where people have gotten assaulted. It coincides with the times that the city has to conduct beach maintenance with heavy equipment. And we've had accidents between the beach equipment and people that have buried themselves in the sand. I think everyone remembers that a drunk driver made their way all the way to the beach, was driving recklessly, and then ended up running somebody over that was also sleeping on the beach. We have had incidents of assaults that have occurred out on the beach in the middle of the night. We've had a woman that was killed in her sleeping bag out there once, not all within the last 12 months. I mean, perennially, we've had stuff that's happened out there in the middle of the night. And we're trying to find a balance between people being able to use the beach and this public safety need between making sure that we can keep the beach clean and making sure that the beach can be safe. Because it just does tend to be like a fertile area for a would-be assailant to go out there and find a victim. So we'll see where we end up with this request to the Coastal Commission to limit the hours. I think it was midnight to 5, but I'm not 100% right now.
Okay. Stacy, go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much. I was wondering, what is the plan? Because I assume that you're going to have some kind of plan for if and when ICE does show up.
So remember, and I would, obviously pass this advice on to anyone, is that federal immigration, federal law enforcement has the ability to go into any public space and do their work. And I would strongly suggest not to get in their way. You can obviously, if you're witnessing something, you can record it, but don't get too close, because then it can become a judgment call as to how close you're getting and whether or not you're interfering with that. And I tell you that because, because I know the long arm of federal law enforcement, right? We know that it can take them a little bit, but they will find you and they will arrest you. And then if they arrest you and prosecute you, the penalties and the criminal liability that you have in those situations is very high. Um, and and it's not like LA County, right, where you're going to go and do a day of time served and then they don't have any room in their jail and they're going to let you go. With the federal government, you're talking about, anywhere from 3 years to 5 years, depending on the severity of your interference with their work. And you could end up in a federal prison in a state far, far away from California. And so I guess what I'm trying to tell you is that the legal jeopardy is very high. And so you got to be very careful. For another law enforcement agency in a situation like that, we have to respect their sovereignty and their ability to do and carry out the things that they're going to carry out. Our role in a situation like that is if they arrive, and if they arrive in the way that they arrived into downtown LA, a couple of Fridays ago on at 10 a.m. on a Friday, and things began to melt down, and there was conflict between the agents and the people that were in the area, then our role here in Santa Monica would be to respond and keep the peace. It would be to respond and de-escalate, to make sure that that people aren't getting hurt and that the agents aren't getting hurt. So yeah, we end up being kind of in the middle of this thing, but that's the role that we have to play. And if you think about it through the lens of public safety and life preservation, that's the role that local law enforcement plays in a situation like you described, and certainly a situation like we witnessed in those early hours of that Friday when there was a standoff between the federal agents holding that area where they put a bunch of officers in the front, and then a lot of people had gathered, and there were that exchange that was going on between them. Our role in something like that is to get between them and keep them apart. Certainly, free speech is fine. It's just that when projectiles start getting launched, then obviously we can't have that. Does that kind of answer your question, Stacy?
Projectiles or
Yeah. So we're talking about the line being projectiles, things that then put people at risk, whether they are the let's just say ICE, or whether it is citizens on the street.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, the line is actually like you can't like go and grab at the agents. You can't,
Right.
no.
get in their way.
Yeah, no, we understand that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I just was
because
curious.
yeah, because I mean the definition, right? And don't forget, the Department of Justice has issued out a pretty broad order saying that it doesn't matter if you're a municipal official or anybody else, right? Obstruction of the federal government and its work of immigration enforcement is going to be prosecuted. And so that's pretty broad and kind of like undefined in that,
right.
Obstruction is going to be defined by the U.S. Attorney's Office. I mean, it just hasn't,
Right.
we don't have a clear definition of that. And I certainly don't want anyone on this call to ever test that limit, because you're going up against the federal government to try and defend yourself, and they have a vast amount of resources, and for most of us, we don't. So
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you.
yeah.
Okay. Steve, you got another question? Go ahead.
Yeah, my wife doesn't want to be on camera, but she wants to.
Is she asking the question?
Yes. Well, she wants me to ask it. That she walks the Palisades Park twice a week from like Georgina down to the pier and so forth.
Yeah.
And she doesn't feel safe, and she just wishes there were more police presence around there. And there's a lot of tourists, and she goes, I look at them and they don't feel comfortable, walking through there and so forth. And I remember listening about, I think 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, you were in front of the city council, and you were sharing, and I might have the number wrong, so you'll probably remember what you said about people coming off of the train, the transients and stuff, about 100 a day. I think you said that you, it, it, I mean, I drive down Wilshire Boulevard, and I don't think there isn't a block that doesn't have somebody that's just loitering. And I don't know what the laws are, why we don't have signs up where people can't loiter.
Yeah. So that's a pretty compound question, but I'll try. Um, you're right. I did talk about the number of homeless folks that are being pushed off the train every night. And according to some of the people that were working on the platform, they're like, hey, there's like 100 to 150 people that jump the turnstiles every night. And I have to think that some portion of those folks end up in our city. I think that a lot of them jump the turnstiles in the morning and get back on the train and continue their ride all throughout LA City. But nonetheless, that's a lot of folks that get off the train in the middle of the night, and I venture to guess that some of them end up in our city. And I couch that against the number of crimes that are associated with homeless folks. It's not homelessness, right? I mean, we're not criminalizing homelessness, but it is the number of crimes that are associated with homelessness. And so this year so far, we've arrested, like, of the total number of people we've arrested, a full 70% were homeless. And when I look at low-level cases of assault, vandalism, criminal damage, drug use, thievery, a lot of those cases are associated with people living on the street, and the engagement that they have with one another, with residents. Sometimes they steal things. All those things happen. The stuff that you're describing when your wife walks in Palisades Park, like, there has to be a balance, right? Folks can't be excluded from being on the park just because they don't have a place to live. And I
Right. She
think that
carries pepper spray with her too.
yeah, and I think that therein lies a little bit of the nuance that we have to look at this thing through. Certainly, if somebody is, threatening somebody, accosting somebody, lunging at someone, that's a completely different story. But if somebody is just looks like they're not doing well because their mental health, their physical state is in disrepair, those things, I mean, you could report it anonymously through the 311 app. And our police department, our officers that are assigned to do nothing but homeless work, they have no backlog. Like, every day they go out there and they check up and they follow up on every single one of those 311 tips that are put in. And they go out there and they address either an encampment, or they find somebody who needs help.
So how does Beverly Hills not have the same situation?
Well, Beverly Hills doesn't have the same situation because Beverly Hills doesn't have the metro train. Beverly Hills doesn't have the metro bus that drops them off in the middle of the night like they do here. And I-10 is a destination point, right? I mean, this is the end of I-10. And if you've spent time in Santa Monica for any number of years, like, that for many, many years, Santa Monica has always welcomed folks that are unhoused, given them opportunity to get back on their feet. And so that's a component of it. I mean, it is the reality of the situation. And we're not the only city that is dealing with homelessness. Certainly, Beverly Hills has homelessness, just not to the extent that we have it. With respect to what you said about Wilshire, I see it too. I drive down Wilshire. I see it on Santa Monica. So we've done a couple of operations on both streets where we go out there repeatedly, right? We go out there and we work that corridor, and we do nothing but contact folks that are unhoused and trying to give them opportunities to get off the street. So we refer them to Sam O'Shell. We refer them to the Salvation Army. If there's a mental health issue going on, we try to give them the assistance they need in order to get that help somewhere outside of Santa Monica. There's a lot of things that we're doing to try to address those folks that are in need that are not committing a crime. And that is the key, right? When you look at this, is that it is definitely unsettling to walk down Palisades and see folks that are like not doing so well. But remember, that in and of itself is not a crime. It's like when they start to jump at you, it's when they start to accost you or yell at you, then that is completely unacceptable. And I don't want any of our residents to feel that way when they're just trying to enjoy the space, go to the park, go to the store, anything, walk in their neighborhood. I mean, that's not acceptable. I hope that helps.
May I ask,
You.
on Wilshire by our Starbucks, there was this fellow there demanding money. Give me money, I need $1 for food. Give me food money. I mean, he was demanding it of everyone, and I did call on him. They chased him away. He was back with his friends across the street, smoking something, passing it around. It was smelt like marijuana, but it was obviously more because of the way their behavior was afterwards. And I called that in too. And the officers did come out, and basically they didn't ID them or anything. They just sort of chased them away. And my concern was that they were sitting at the bus stop at 11th and Wilshire. They were camped out there. They had themselves sitting in a little circle, and
Yeah.
meaning no one else could use the bus, get on or off the bus, and be safe there.
Yeah, no,
So I don't know why. I mean, it was just one officer who came out, and then another one came, and they just sort of chased them away.
I,
And I was a little bit concerned that not a whole lot happened, and they just
well,
walked down the
well,
street.
so here's the deal, right? We're not going to be okay with public drug use. If they were smoking either marijuana or any kind of other illicit drug in public, trust me that they're going to make the arrest. As a matter of fact, they've made more arrests for drug use or drug sales than they have in the entire time that I've been here. And so we're very focused, no public drug use, that's not okay. So in that situation, if they weren't smoking any kind of an illicit drug, they're not going to be able to make an arrest. And if they're sitting in a public space that is open to everybody else, then they have the ability to do that. And all they can really do is kind of, like you described, say, hey, you can't loiter here or whatever. And then they end up moving on. In some of these cases, they have the opportunity to make contact with somebody for a municipal code violation. And then from there, they run their name and come to find out that there's a warrant or they're in possession of a drug or a weapon. And then they can make the arrest and take them away. But remember, like, that's a fine line. Like, we can't use the weight of law enforcement, the weight of the government in just all situations. Like, there has to be a clearly defined break of the municipal code for the officers to be able to then use that. And how do I know this stuff that I'm telling you? Because I read like all about the officers' work. Like, they're very proactive. If somebody's breaking a municipal code or a state law, then they will make the contact. And then from there, they'll find out that the person's wanted, they've got drugs, whatever, and then they make the arrest and take the person away. And so one thing that I will recommend to everybody is every week we publish something called the Blue Notebook. And I encourage you, and it's on our website, I encourage you to read it because it's just a snapshot of all the work that went on that week. I mean, we're taking 2,800 calls a week. It averages out to about 300 and some odd calls a day. And we publish a snapshot of all that stuff that we did here in one easy to read, link that kind of gives you the highlights. And from there, you can begin to see the pattern, right? The officers made contact with somebody because of municipal code violation. And from there, they found this, and then from there, they did this. But in some of the situations like you're describing, like that might not been a law that was being broken. Aggressive panhandling, when they're asking for money, but other more clear violations of the code or state law, they're going to make the stop. They're going to ask a lot of questions, and inevitably that leads to some people getting arrested. In some cases where there's an encampment, like somebody is beginning to form an encampment, the officers will come by, give a warning. Most times, like 9 times out of 10, when the officers give a warning, the person will pick up their stuff and move on. And so the reason for that is because the way that we use the encampment municipal code in our city is that we use warnings, right? Like we're not going to like on the very first attempt of making contact with somebody go, okay, sorry, have no chance to pick up your stuff and go. We're just going to make an arrest. Like it doesn't help. So we do give them warnings. They do pick up their stuff. They do get going. We do give them the chance to go to the shelters that we have. And I mentioned Samo Shell is one of them. The Salvation Army also helps us out. And here more recently, if we arrest a homeless person for a low level violation, they have the opportunity to go to our place called Samo Bridge, which is like an interim place to try to get them stabilized and then hopefully get them onto some other more stable home, more stable situation for them to like get off the street. And like 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, those places are not in Santa Monica, they're somewhere else. And so for every one person that we get them off the street or they're not going to be the victim or the suspect in an assault, to us is a win. But the challenge goes back to that other thing that we were talking about. So many people come into our community that are homeless, and while not all of them are engaged in criminal behavior, some of them are engaged in some of this other thing where you're like, hey, like you can't have an encampment, and therefore like this whole thing continues to perpetuate.
Andy, I wanted to just let you know that one thing that we want to do is we want to start sending out the Blue Notebook link to you or whoever, and if you could share it with the group as well. I know that's something that we were going to start doing going forward, just so everyone can have access to it in case they can't find it. And just as a reminder to everyone, yes, we want you to always they call dispatch. We want you to use the 311 system. Like Chief said, like the help team is very good with addressing those any 311s that they get. But you also have myself. If there's any resources that you're not sure of, if you have any questions, Officer Toggle and myself are out there for you. You guys have our email and our phone number. Officer Toggle was actually part of the help team before, so he's very knowledgeable when it comes to that. So please use us as well. If you don't know where to go, just email us and we can help direct you.
Okay. I was going to interject at this point. So Jacqueline, if you could put a link into the chat right now, that would at least be helpful for everybody that's here right now. But I also wanted to point out, because we had a lot of people join like after 7, and we did send out another email today pointing out that the chief was going to start at 6:30. It might not have been very clear in that email. So I know a lot of people kind of showed up expecting him to start at 7. So I will post this one on our YouTube page. If you search for Santa Monica Mid-City Neighbors, you'll get our hits. It looks like I've only posted 2 so far because the chief's been going at this for close to an hour now, and he did mention that he's got limited time. So along those lines, there's a number of people that have raised their hands and have already asked questions. So I'm going to skip over Stacy, and Erica Leslie has had her hand raised for quite some time. I'm going to let her go. And then William, did you have a comment real quick?
I have a question.
Okay, I'll get to you also. So, but Erica, please go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to have a quick question or kind of like a comment. Chief, are they still doing that tap to exit program that they started while I was on the board for DTSM?
I'm sorry, Erica. It's good to see you too. Which program?
The tap to exit program.
Oh,
you know how
yeah.
they put somebody off at the end of the train.
Yeah.
And that was supposed to deter people, but
No, that's a really good point. About 6-8 months ago, the police department, the city, transportation, like we were all very supportive of Metro's tap to exit program. And what it means is you had to tap your tap card in order to exit to show that you were a legitimate rider. So I think that what's going on right now is that program is not working the way it was planned out, because yeah, it's like that's the best way to describe it. It's just not working the way they had talked about.
So that's the reason why I asked the question, because I know that's something for you to circle back and revisit, because I know you guys are busting your tails to help us with the homeless problem. Also, I wanted to point out that the sheriff department are no longer working with Metro. They have their own police.
Yeah,
So that's the issue.
Right. They won't be getting off the ground for a while because it's going to take a long time to build the department from the ground up. So for now, they still have a contract with Long Beach, LAPD, and the sheriff's office. And the sheriff's office has ours here in Santa Monica. So it's going to be a little bit longer.
So how does that affect enforcement since they are no longer, their contract is kind of timing winding down?
No, they're still out there. They're still working. It's just that for whatever reason, the whole tap to exit program is I don't think it's working the way they had envisioned here in Santa Monica.
Well, since there's no gates, it's pretty easy to avoid having to tap exit. So,
hey, one thing I was gonna remind everyone is that the presentation that I did before the council was a pretty good recap of the entire year and really shows a lot of the work that went on, a lot of the work the officers did, and I encourage you guys to look it up. If Jackie can maybe give you guys the link, that would help too. But
do you remember what date that was?
It was that the date that
it was 2 meetings ago.
It was the 10th, right? June 10th.
Yeah.
June 10th.
Yeah, it was June 10th, and the link is in our website, but I think Jackie can get you guys.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and add it as well.
Okay.
That was the budget meeting, right?
No, that was a different one, a different meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
So William, I'm going to give you board member privileges and let you ask the question next ahead of the others, and then we'll get to Noah and then Amrat and Gary. And
did I hear you say we're going to wrap up after that because I've been doing this for an hour? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah.
I was going to say, Andy, if there's any questions that we can answer, I mean, unless they're really pertaining to Chief, like Officer Talgo and Officer Wang are on here as well.
Okay, well, it looks like Gary dropped out, so I will give at least William his question and Noah and Amrat, and then I was going to call it there, if that's okay.
And Chief, I'll ask you my question Saturday when I see you because it's very important.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
And I was going to point out that the Chief will be at our Make Music Day event Saturday at Colorado Park from 4 to 8. So that'll be another opportunity you'll have to interface with the Chief. So Noah, please go ahead.
Hey, Chief.
Wait. Actually, no, I'm sorry. I told William he could go, and then we'll get to you.
Okay, sure.
Board member privileges.
Yeah.
Chief, thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, of course.
Really informative and thorough. I appreciate it. You mentioned the presence of cameras around Santa Monica. Are there city cameras throughout the city or just in the business district? Is there a specific policy about where the cameras should be placed, and are there any plans or particular ambitions for the future use of more cameras?
So I think that we've got about 800 or 900 cameras. We've been deep into the work of refurbishing all the existing cameras. So there was a lot of cameras on the promenade, a lot of traffic intersection cameras. Yeah, but they were very old and outdated. So we've been working like around the clock, to be honest with you, in getting those replaced. The things that and there are some areas where we added new cameras, but I don't have the map or know exactly what areas. No cameras in residential areas. Most of these cameras are in the business corridors, traffic ways. We have nearly 82, I want to say, license plate readers. And those are, if you can imagine, a concentric circle, some around the downtown area, and then extending further out into the egress points for the city. So that way, if somebody comes into the city, goes into the downtown corridor, commits some kind of a crime, like we have the better ability to kind of track their movement going in and coming out. The funds, the money that we received in order to be able to do this came from a grant, and the grant is focused on curtailing retail theft. And so the reason for it is that's the reason, right? Our downtown core is what we're concerned about protecting from retail theft groups. And so the grant is aimed at strengthening our ability to protect that downtown area based on that grant. So the core amount of cameras and everything else is in downtown, with more cameras in some of the business corridors. But I don't have the complete number. It's somewhere around 800 or 900. I believe 900 is probably more accurate.
Thank you for that. Noah, now it's your turn.
Hey, Chief. Thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it. And
yeah,
you obviously, you guys do a lot with the resources you're given, and given the size of the challenge, there's only so much, a limited number of people can do, right? I guess along those lines, I'm curious whether, you feel like you have the resources you need. Like if you, I don't know how many officers you have, around Santa Monica, but like if it's like 30 or 40, do you feel like you need 50 or 60, or like what do you feel like is the appropriate number of police officers given the size of the city and given the challenges that we face, that have obviously been discussed quite a bit?
Yeah, so a couple things. I think that the department for a long time was not staffed appropriately. And in order for the goals of covering those things for it to happen, it was done with overtime. And I think that that's the reason why the department is nearly 50-50 with professional staff in a uniform and police officers. So we find ourselves, in my estimation, lacking in the number of police officers that we should have. Now, what that number should be at the top line, I've kind of said maybe about 250. And that comes from my experience of being here. Our top line number right now is 232. We have a staffing study that was commissioned a couple of months ago, and I should get the results of that here within the next 45 days. And it's being done by a reputable outside firm to give us an idea as to the staffing and what it should be. And are we at the right number? Do we need more? Like all that thing, I think all that will come out. So right now, yeah, I don't think that we have enough officers, without a doubt. And it's based on, for example, the amount of overtime that we've used in the past year. And so in the past year, we've probably used about $13 million in overtime. And if you think about overtime in terms of hours worked, then you begin to get a really good understanding of the amount of extra time that the officers are spending doing different types of patrol duties. Like when I talked about the fact that we have more officers working on the beach and on the pier on the weekends and at night, like those are all overtime details, right? Because we need those areas covered, but we don't have enough staffing to be able to just move officers from other areas and then put them out there, because then other areas would be missing their work. I've had suggestions to pull detectives or pull traffic officers and put them out there, but then their work is not going to be done. And so that's really perennially been the way that we've been able to cover these gaps, has been by overtime. I think in a recent council meeting, you may have heard that there's going to be a reduction in the amount of overtime that we have allotted to us. So, for example, the original suggestion was that we're going to cut our overtime by 700,000. And so I think that we did the calculations, and $700,000 worth of overtime amounted to about 6,800 hours of work. So that number has now been cut from 700 to 500,000. So still a lot of hours that are going to be cut from the ability to deploy and meet the moment, right? The event that happened on Saturday, not everybody that day was working on overtime, but the vast majority of folks that were working that day were on overtime. And so that's like a perfect example of what I'm talking about, right? Something comes, something happens, and we have to respond to that moment. Like we just don't have the ability to marshal, police officers like LAPD would have the ability to just pull people from different areas. And next thing you know, they've got like a couple hundred officers. Like we have 200, and that's the number roughly, and those are the ones we deploy. But then we don't have more, then we need additional assistance, or we end up using overtime. And so I guess the long story short is we do need more officers. I'm pretty certain of that. What that number will be, my guess is about 250, but we'll wait to see what the staffing study tells us, and then it'll be public information and public knowledge, so that when we're in a better position financially, I hope that we can begin to hire more officers, because we do genuinely need it. I mean, we've been understaffed for a long, long time.
Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. And obviously, I think it's a question of prioritization, right? Within the budget, and I think it's incumbent upon us as residents to make our voices heard in front of the city council that our number one priority is public safety. And if you need the officers, you should get the officers. Unfortunately, I think maybe this city council, maybe that's not their number one priority. At least some of them. The fact that they're cutting overtime is just evidence of that. We should be increasing overtime and increasing the number of officers, not decreasing it.
Right. Well, I'm going to let Amrat go next, and then we're going to let the chief go. So go ahead, Amrat.
Hello. So my question is, what do you define camping as? Like, what equipments are in are included? What would define the code camping?
Yeah. So when an officer walks up and begins to look at everything that's being built up, the officer has to make an assessment whether or not the person that he's dealing with is begun to use public space, right? So let's make it really, really simple. And Officer Tago's on the calls, and he did all kinds of work with the help team. So he's going to be really good at this too. But imagine a sidewalk, and imagine a person begins to accumulate stuff around him. And so when we get called, like, that's what the officers have to look at, right? They have to think to themselves, okay, we here in Santa Monica, like, other cities can use this, but we can't, right? We can't look at a bedroll or a pillow. Like, that's something that can't be evaluated as an encampment, but we have to look at all the other things. So does he have a pot, a pan? Does he have a chair? Is he beginning to set up a tent? Is he beginning to accumulate stuff that makes it look as though he is starting to take over public space for private means? And so I think that a lot of us can begin to envision what that looks like, because we've seen it over time, right? And the unfortunate thing is that with us not being able to use the totality of what the Supreme Court has allowed across the country, it makes it so that we have to look at things through a lens where a person has the ability to accumulate more things before we're able to kind of hit the trigger of okay, this is an encampment. You're building towards an encampment, and you can't have that. And then at that point, we give them a warning. It doesn't mean that we give them 3 warnings over 3 days. You could give 3 warnings in 1 day, right? It just depends on the space where they're doing it, how much stuff they've accumulated, and what our capacity is to be able to come in and help them pick up all that stuff to get them going. So it is not so clear cut, because there's a lot that goes to it. But that's kind of the general answer of what we see. And Officer Tago, if you want to fill in, that would help.
Yeah, if anybody's interested in the actual code, it's 4.08.095, Adam. So you may not utilize public space for living accommodations. And the way we do that is intent over time. So as Chief mentioned, we advise these individuals, and the way we show that they're utilizing the space for living accommodations is if we come back the next day and they're still there with all their property, The number one thing that the help team does is education and trying to do outreach. And when these individuals don't change their behavior, sometimes we have to rely on the law and the code to change that behavior.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's I'm gonna let the chief go, and then I will expound upon that a little further. So, Chief, thank you very, very much for joining us tonight and going over all of this. I will definitely be posting this probably tomorrow. I might get it up tonight. We'll see. So that people can watch from the beginning to hear all of the review of the events that happened over the weekend, because they all joined in and we were pretty much done with that part. But we thank you very much for joining, and I'm going to let you log off before I keep talking anymore. So.
Right, Andy, I just want to sign off by saying thank you. It's good to see you. Stacy, it's good to see you. Erica, of course, always. Bonnie, I see you here in the corner as well. It's so good to see you guys. Mouse, I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. Thanks again for having me, and have a good night. All right, have a good meeting.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay, to the camping ordinance. The previous city council had created an ordinance that said no camping. The current city council rescinded that ordinance. So that was a political decision that was made. If you don't like that or you're unhappy with that, you need to write to your existing city council members. So that's why it was a complicated question, because it's got a complicated answer. And prior to the Supreme Court finally making a decision on that case in Oregon, we weren't allowed to ban camping. So it was complicated. It was as soon as that Supreme Court overruled the Ninth Circuit ruling for the Oregon case, Grants Pass, that's when our city council created a new no camping ordinance. And then shortly after this new council started, they rescinded that ordinance and we went back to the prior ordinance. So that's a little bit complicated.
Yeah, I just want to touch on that real quick, Andy. I don't think that was taken away. I think there was an adjustment to it last year that added to it that these individuals are allowed rudimentary elements, which are they're allowed essentials to be able to survive, such as sleeping bags. Now, you have to be able to articulate public camping, and we're lucky enough to have a municipal code that has a variety of things in it. So if you struggle with trying to figure out if that's public camping or not, usually there's other violations attached to that, such as maybe they have a tent in the park, maybe they have stuff tied to the city property, maybe they're messing with park foliage. There's other things that we could utilize if public camping is something hard to articulate.
All right, and I see Cynthia Rose actually typed that into the chat, so thank you, Cynthia, as well for clarifying on that. One other thing I wanted to mention that the chief touched upon was the San Michelle Bridge. Now, I saw Jenna Grigsby give a presentation on this at an open meeting, and I had reached out to her to present, and we've just had some complications on when she can do that. I currently am hoping that our August meeting, she will be able to join us to give a presentation on the new San Michelle Bridge. So we'll have a better idea about that. With that, Jacqueline, why don't we transition into our neighborhood resource officers report, and then we're going to do board business, and this is going to be a pretty short meeting overall. So,
okay, I'm gonna just go over a couple of things. I know we've gone a little bit over time. So, main thing that I wanted to point out is that there was a few simple assaults over the past month, but the one note that I want to make is that what helped the officers was the description. So when they were calling 911, when the victims were calling 911, they were giving a good description or they had security footage. So for example, there was this one there was a battery at one of the stores. They they noted what the victim noticed that they were working and they noticed that the suspect was kind of walking around looking suspicious. So they were keeping an eye on them. They tried to steal something. When the store owner approached them, they tried to hit them and hit them with a bag. They were able to get a description. They did not follow them or anything. They just kept an eye on them. They were able to give a description to dispatch. And in the end, they were able to catch the person. There was another one where I know we've talked about grand thefts and keeping your belongings, important belongings outside of your car, making sure that you're not attracting anyone to your own personal items. And making sure that you lock your car when you're leaving for the simplest thing. So there was actually someone who tried to, it was two workers were going to work at a bank and they left their doors unlocked. One of them realized, oh, I forgot my laptop in the car. So he goes and tries to get his laptop out of the car, realizes my laptop isn't there. Calls in 911. They have security footage. They're able to, the officer that arrives is able to give out a description to all responding officers. Another officer happens to see him on the street. That's someone that matches their description. They detain him. They notice that the laptop is there and they're able to arrest them just from questioning. And then the victim was able to identify them, to positively identify them. So again, big thing is the description. We had a lot of those incidents occur this past month.
Jackie, just to touch on that real quick, I think the one that Jackie just mentioned, I believe that suspect was tied to multiple vehicle burglaries and thefts in the area. The 1200 block of Stanford and around there, there's about 3 or 4 car break-ins. And the individual they stopped and arrested had property from each of those vehicles. So I think he was tied to all those vehicle burglaries in that area.
Thank you for that, Tago. I actually did not know that. So let's see. On the 2500 block of Wilshire Boulevard, there was unknown suspects got onto the roof and stole some copper wiring and equipment from air conditioner. Now we know that that's been a thing. Luckily, it hasn't been a big thing recently, but it's still something to watch out for. So if you see anything suspicious like that, to call it in. It did end up being about like $16,000 worth of damage done to their property. But that was the only incident. I know we had a long report, so I just wanted to open up to questions for everyone to see if anyone has any questions for us. Chief might have answered everything in the last hour.
Just real quick. So again, as we touched on like the vehicle test and stuff, a lot of the cases that we had this prior month, the owners were unsure if they locked their vehicle or not, and a bunch of them admitted to leaving their vehicles unlocked. So the combination of leaving vehicles unlocked with leaving personal property such as laptops or things of that nature, I mean, anybody walking down a street, all it takes is one opportunist to peek into the car and be like, let's see if this door handle is unlocked. They open it and then they're away with your property. So please, as much as you can, lock your vehicles, take your property away, lock your doors at home. Just little things that we can do to try to, eliminate anybody having the opportunity to commit a crime.
And then as far as Andy, the links. So I'm right now not on my own computer, and the computer I'm on has a million tabs open. So I'm having a little issue. So I will send you the link to the city council and as well as the Blue Notebook so that everyone else can have it.
Okay. Well, actually, I already handled the city council part.
Oh, beautiful. I appreciate that.
Put in the link, both the link to the video archive and then also a link to the actual agenda so you can kind of figure out where in the meeting you spoke. With the video archive, you can either stream it or download it. Mouse, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, CPC Jacqueline and Officer Tago, for rearranging your time to accommodate the chief. So thank you for that. With that said, I know last year Halima printed out the report. If you wanted to do that this year and bring it on Saturday, if anyone has any questions, you can, have that report of all of the criminal activity that has happened in our neighborhood since we're running out of time with you guys. So please bring a copy. And if anyone has any questions that are at this meeting and they see you there, at least, you can talk about that.
Is there a time frame you're looking like
Nope.
for this? I'm
This
sorry.
is whenever you show up. I know Saturday is incredibly busy for everyone, but we're
But
gonna
time
have
frame
it.
of the stats, are you looking for what's happened this year? Or you're looking for the
Oh
20?
no, just what your usual report is,
Got
and
it.
considering what happened tonight and how your schedule got rearranged. If you just wanted to bring what you were gonna speak about tonight, and just have that handy, if anyone here that's at this meeting right now has questions and wants to chat with you while you're at the event Saturday. If you have an idea of what time you're gonna attend the Mid-City Neighbors Make Music Day, that might be helpful. I'll have a table for you so
Beautiful.
you can
Thank you.
come anytime, and you'll have access to park behind the basketball courts too and be able to enter that way.
Thank you, Mels. I was actually going to check in with Chief to see what time he was planning on going, so we can kind of arrange it during similar times. And then I'll let you know. So whatever information I find out about that.
Perfect. And then Andy and just to everybody else in the group, I just want to keep you in the loop. So my primary role at the police department is I'm a neighborhood resource officer for Beat 3, but I'm also a collateral member of our SWAT team. So this week and next week, I'm currently out of the office. I'm at SWAT school. So if any concerns or any questions come up, please refer to Jackie or anybody else from our office. And if you don't know any other emails, just reach out to me and I'll make sure that somebody gets your questions or concerns, that they get answers back to you guys.
Great. I was going to get to that, but thanks for beating me to the punch. Officer Tago saw me down in a city council meeting and came up and introduced himself in person, and then told me he was going off for SWAT training. So this was going to be the last meeting for a bit. I did notice you brought another member of the force.
Yes, that's Officer Wang. He's my partner for Beat 4. So he was just coming on here for support. We're a big, good team, so we kind of jump on each other's meetings to help out.
And Officer Wayne is actually the acting sergeant of our unit right now, while our sergeant's out of the office.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So any issues, come talk to me about it. I'm very responsive to my phone calls and emails. But thank you for having us this evening.
We always enjoy it. So, if there are any other questions for the NROs, we can entertain that. Real quick, I have tried searching. I'm searching on the city website for Police Blue Notebook, and I tried June 1st to 11th, 2025. Not quite getting there, but I'm seeing a lot of them show up. So it'll just take a little bit of refining, and I will try to pop up the most
You're
recent
on the
one.
right one. I think the next one is being posted this week.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're on the right track. It's under the Santa Monica Police, and you'll see all the dates. But I'll send you the link either way just to make sure.
Okay. I didn't go down the path of like trying to find police first. I tried Blue Notebook first. So and now it's just guessing dates. So I would get there eventually, but we'll figure it out when we get it posted. So
absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you
everyone.
Officers and Jackie, and we will see you Saturday.
See you on Saturday.
In a month. So
exactly.
Thank you guys. Everybody have a good night. Thank you.
Okay. So now we are going to move on to board business, the boring bit. The minutes. I did not download the latest round of minutes that got revised. Somebody briefly, Susan Reskin there did briefly pop up what the YouTube page looked like when you searched for Santa Monica Mid-City Neighbors. And literally, it kind of looks like what you see right here. Like this. Maybe me doing this, I think. That's the very first one I ever posted. So it should be very obvious that you're in the right place if you see this background. Like I said, I think I've only posted two. One was the affordable housing project when we first had them come on, and then the other was the ballot measure discussions. So those are up and available, and I will be trying to get the rest of those up. Back to minutes. I take it the board has had a chance to review the minutes from last week or last month. And there were already actually some revisions, mostly just around making sure we don't call Jacqueline an officer, that she's a CPC, and not a police officer. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
I'm making a motion.
Okay. And then I'll say that William seconded because I saw something flash there. And then all in favor say aye.
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 All right, that looks unanimous. And then treasurer's report. William, are you ready?
Yeah, sure. Business checking balance is $1,846.35. Primary savings is $7,684.13.
Okay. Did we had an issue with the $7,000 check going into savings from the city going into savings instead of checking? Did that get resolved?
I need to do some arithmetic to decide how much should be transferred over to business checking.
Okay. All right. So that is our current treasurer's report. I will move that we approve that. Is there a second? Daniel has seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 There we go. Now it's unanimous. So that is the treasurer's report. Unless there's anything else.
Yes, we should, as a board, speak quickly on Make Music Day this Saturday.
Okay, let me
Yeah.
put a pin on that and have that be the last thing.
Sure, absolutely.
One thing I do want to point out is that the Airport to Park has another survey that's going around. You should have received something about it. And if not, I'll try to put something out this week before the weekend, because the final deadline for doing the new survey is on June 22nd. Now, the Airport to Park people have been receiving a lot of flack because they put forward 3 propositions, and 2 out of the 3 propositions had housing, which ranked second lowest out of 40 things people wanted there. What they were trying to do is put in all the different types of things that you could vote for. So they want you to kind of go through and say, well, out of this proposal, I like this thing. And out of this proposal, I like this thing. And out of this proposal, I like this thing. So you're not necessarily weighing in on the entirety of a proposal as much as you're saying, well, I like this bit of this proposal and this bit of this proposal. And I think their very first option was one designed mostly to be relatively inexpensive to do and to maintain. And it included a large urban forest portion and a large, let's call it a reflecting pool, because that's what it looked like. It's basically, hey, let's not tear out the runway concrete. Let's just build a wall around it and use it as a physical reservoir of water that we would use. The city is in the process of ramping up their recycled water capabilities. And then they would put that water into that, and it would be a potential resource of water that the city could draw upon if need be for firefighting efforts, residential efforts, or etc. So even though it looks blocky and weird, it's an option, and it's a cheap option. It's my background with lead. I'm not so certain that leaving that concrete layer is the best choice. But they do have, like in the second choice, they make it a big, deep lake. So you could pick the big, deep lake, but have the large forest element. One of the other Friends of Sunset Park, Zena Josephs pointed out that one of them has a large amphitheater that is actually physically larger and holds more people than the Hollywood Bowl. And the anticipation of it being used, a couple times a year is truly unrealistic because with that much effort put into it, whoever's managing it is going to want to use it frequently, and it will drive a large amount of traffic to the area that they don't have plans to provide parking or access, in and out. It's just going to create massive traffic jams on Bundy. So personally, I don't think we need that. A small amphitheater for minor performances would be fine. I'm wanting to kind of keep it nature focused, and the Urban Forest Task Force, we voted to thank them for taking a nature first tack towards it. So that's what we would like to see is an urban forest, the Urban Forest Task Force, of course. But I encourage you to take the time to go to the project website and go through it and do the preferences the way they do it. So that's all I'm going to say on that. Now let's go ahead and talk about our Make Music Day event this Saturday from 4 to 8. Free music in the park on the longest night of the year.
Nope, that's Friday. The 20th is actual solstice. The 21st will be the first day where it starts getting darker.
Stop splitting hairs. It's June 21st is Make Music Day. The solstice ranges over 3 days every year. It's generally that day, but that's when we will have the event. Mouse, do you want to talk any more about it?
Well, I just wanted to talk logistics with the board members about it. I mean, there's nothing else to speak about Make Music Day. We've gotten the word out. The city put a little snippet on the website today, and
yeah, there we go.
Just ready to have the event.
Mouse, what time do you want us there?
Well, I'm going to start load in about 10:30. I would like if I think Andy's going to come meet me about 11 to pop up the tent and set up the tables. And this is where I want to ask William if he can come man the table and just sit there, work it out with Andy, take turns of watching the table because we will have a lot of stuff at the table. Ellen, I can't ask you to come and sit there for all those hours unless you decide a time best for you to come. But the event starts at 4. And so it depends on what time you would like to get there. Everything will be ready to go and set up. I just had a few comments because Vito's is going to be donating 10 pies. And I wanted to speak with the board to see how we can make use of those pies. A few of those pies, about 3 or 4 of them are already accounted for the artist and volunteers, crew, staff, whatever. But the other pies, we can do what we would like, and maybe we can use it as incentive to get people to pay their dues or to generate new memberships. But my fear is I don't want to bring excess napkins or plates because then there's trash everywhere. And we will be responsible for picking up trash. And it's in the script that Andy will, repeat over and over, please pick up your trash, blah, blah, blah. I might even make a couple of signs that say, please dispose of your litter in the trash can, receptacles, whatever. That's my fear of getting pizza, that everyone will be wanting napkins, and then we'll see white napkins all over the park. So with that said, I wanted to get, an idea of how we can't just give out the pizza to everyone because there's not enough. And then if there whatever's left, then it's a free for all towards the end of the night. So I just wanted to get, however you guys want to do that, you'll have about 5 pies to play with, which is about 50 slices, possibly, or 5. There are eight slices in a pie, but I'm gonna bring a pizza cutter because they're big slices. So,
Yeah.
and I got 3 cases of water from Trader Joe's and a bunch of little individual snacks like prepackaged nuts and like those little oat bars or the fruit bars. So we'll have little snacks for anyone to take. And of course, the signs I've made for the past several years, please 1 snack per person. It's mostly for kids. So, but there will be snacks and you'll have a case of water and we'll have water and so whatever you think is the best way to kind of divvy up those pies, that's going to be your call. But
Well, so I'll interject here. I think board members should try to be there by 3:30. That's a half an hour before we start. I think that's pretty reasonable. Unless you have, really good reason that you need to be somewhere else. I think one of the reasons Mouse wants William or I there is basically people tend to ask lots of questions about what's going on, and they walk up to her and ask those questions while she's trying to organize things. And it is very frustrating when you're trying to run the show and people keep asking you things. So she needs us to run interference for her. So William and I can kind of tag back and forth on and off. I'm going to at least walk over my 3 bins for garbage, recycling, and compost, because we can throw the pizza boxes in the compost bin. We can throw recycled can. Anybody that has cans or bottles can go into the blue bin. And I will line my black bin with a contractor garbage bag so garbage can go in there. I agree with Mouse that napkins are a bad idea. It's not necessarily the parents, it's kids. Who can blame a kid, right? You're 5 and you're done with the napkin and you just lose track of things, right? So it's just the way it is. And she's right. We would just have a massive white across the lawn that will be required to clean up because Austin Properties wanted to charge us for custodial staff to be there all the time and to clean up after we're done. And we said, no, thank you.
Andy, we always leave that place spotless because I walk the.
Yep, we all do.
We know that, and
yes,
they still tried to get some money on us. So
we clean up more than we put down.
Yeah, no, it's very true. We do, and it's
and this time we'll take a camera photo of it.
So do you? So are you suggesting we should bring napkins?
No.
That's kind of where I'm at.
No.
Okay.
Okay. I'm saying that's a bad idea. I agree.
Okay. Yeah.
I do have to bring a large dog with me because I'm dog sitting.
It is a dog park, so you have to have the dog on leash.
Yeah.
Just
oh yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
No, she'll be fine. But I will have to spend some time with her. I'm gonna try to get her to her play kennel during the day. And but I may have to go pick her up. I'm not sure what her hours are there, but
okay.
Ellen,
there goes half a pizza.
Yeah, Ellen, you're just Andy and I spoke about this the other day, but in terms of a bank to make change for anyone who pays cash for their dues, how much bank do you usually need?
Well, I don't remember.
Like $50?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, all 5s, right?
Yeah, all 5s. Yeah.
Okay. So everything will be set up on that table, ready to go. William, we can sidebar if you can come for the first half or speak with Andy. You guys figure out what time. I think Andy will help me pop up the tent and the table, and then I'll have all the snacks. We'll hide it under the table until about 3:30. But we'll have posters and flyers on the table if anyone comes over and says, "Oh, what's going on today?" And we can kind of get them excited to come back later, for the event. But you're really there to kind of, make sure no one tries to take anything as well too. So.
Well, my big black dog will scare everybody away.
And then here's the other thing. It is a Saturday. I can't announce this, but if anyone does ask you, I think most of us will walk or bike over as board members. However, it is a Saturday at BXP and it is free parking if anyone does drive. There's one entrance that is accessible, and that is at the Colorado and Cloverfield entrance. Those gates are opened all day. I think not all day. You can get out anytime. It's 24/7. So there is parking, and I'm picking up our parking signs tomorrow from City Hall, and I've reserved the 3 meters that are outside the gate as well. So Ellen, if you want to park there, we're limited parking where load in. I have a 16-foot truck coming. I may have to actually move that truck to Broadway for our officers, but we do have free parking under the garage. And that address, I believe, is 2401 Colorado. However, it's pretty accessible. Anyone can find it and park there if you decide to drive. And that's really the update. Like, I'll be there Friday, meeting the parking enforcement to sign off on the signs and to hang our banner and a poster up on the gate of 26 and Broadway. So that will be handled Friday. And I pick up our parking passes tomorrow. And other than that, we're ready to go. If, Andy, you can let me know, or William, if you guys figure out who wants to do first shift, the first hour and a half, just be there by 11. That would be great.
Do we have any other things? Oh, Erica, you're still here.
Yeah, Erica, you should come and say hi if you're here.
Yeah, and you just texted me the link to the Blue Notebook. Why don't you put that in the chat right now? And then at least that way I can click on it and it'll be on my computer and I can send it out.
Okay, that was just the link to where they updated it.
Yeah, I know, but I don't really connect my phone to my computer. I know everybody else does. I am kind of a Luddite. I'm this weird confluence of I like a lot of this stuff, and then I think a lot of it's a little big brothery. So I try to limit. Perfect. Thank you.
No, that was me.
Oh, is that you? You posted our flyer.
I just put the flyer up there. Erica, if you are around, I know Saturday is going to be a huge activation day for the city of Santa Monica in terms of the official launch of the event zone, multiple Make Music Day activations all over the city with summer solstice on Main Street. So if you are making your rounds, please stop through and say hi. I don't know if any council members are going to stop through. I've invited the mayor a number of times. She hasn't responded saying that she would come by, but I've invited Dan is the only one I've heard from that said that he was going to do his best to come by. But we do know the chief will come.
I will pop my head in. I'll pop my head in.
That would be great. All right.
I'll come through and say hi. All you gotta do is ask me. You got my number.
And Dorsey is not going to be coming this year, so she won't be making an appearance, and which is sad because every year she comes through and she's the head of MMLA, and so we did get harmonicas and we will be doing a harmonica giveaway. It's just not going to be a Tom Nolan type of harmonica giveaway, but we still have some harmonicas to kind of do a tutorial with anyone who wants to learn how to blow a harmonica. So, but yeah, come say hi.
All
I
right.
will. I'll be there.
Awesome. I think that we are pretty much done.
Good.
It is 8:19 p.m. and I'm going to officially end this meeting, which means this is the point at which I hit stop recording.